This story would not be so surprising if we were talking about a gang of communists. It would not be so surprising if we were talking about a gang of neo-Nazis. But we're here talking about a bunch of predominantly fruitarian hippies. We're talking about a bunch of vegans who are supposedly going to save the planet, who are preaching compassion, ecology, and all the rest of it. And here I am in an alleyway facing down two guys who have orders from their cult leader to kick my ass. I think it would be reassuring to imagine that these eccentrics I was meeting in this alleyway in Chiang Mai, that the whole gang of them, the various cast and crew surrounding Freely and Durianrider at that time, that they were somehow wildly eccentric, that they were so different from you and I are ourselves. But they're not. They're dreadfully dismal, normal people. And that's what makes it really scary. That's what makes it really haunting, is recognizing that normal people become communists. Normal people become neo-Nazis. Normal people become vegan, yes, but then they go on to disappoint you or even horrify you when they become ex-vegan, become pro-carnivore, become advocates for eating raw meat, raw butter, you name it. What makes the story meaningful, ultimately, is that these aren't monsters. They're dismally normal people. What could be less interesting than a story about a fist fight in an alleyway in Chiang Mai, Thailand in 2016? How about a story about a fist fight in an alleyway that never quite happened? A fist fight that could have happened, but somehow the puzzle pieces didn't quite fit together. Was talking to this other YouTuber, Ethy, and he really insisted to me that I ought to tell this story, that I ought to make a YouTube video about it, at least so that he can take a clip of it and put it on his own channel. I said, well, what do you really find so interesting about this? He said that he thought it was kind of spooky and kind of haunting. So here we are as we come up on Halloween of 2021, and I suppose this is my Halloween story to share with you. What do I find interesting about this? What do I find spooky or haunting about this story? In looking back at the year 2016 and the ungodly events that took place in Chiang Mai, you know, the whole vegan movement came to a crossroads and made a series of fateful decisions. The movement, as such, took on new directions. And individual people within that movement made decisions and took on new directions that changed their lives forever. You know, who was there? Yeah, I was there. Durianrider was there. Freely was there. Paul Bashir was there, right? Joey Carbstrong was there. Get into the list and think about how their lives changed in the months immediately thereafter as my confrontation with Durianrider and the divorce between Durianrider and Freely brought on a new wave of skepticism and, frankly, recrimination within the movement. Durianrider had made it very clear on Facebook, on YouTube, on every form of social media he had at his disposal, including sending out emails to his minions and followers. He had made it very clear that I was to be hunted down and beaten up in the streets of Chiang Mai. And he told me this directly. He sent messages to me directly saying that there were roving gangs of his followers who knew my address, who would find me, and who would, in the parlance of our times, kick my ass. Now, that morning, I woke up and looked out the window. I had jet lag. My sleep cycle was all screwed up. So it was very, very early in the morning. And when I looked out the window of my apartment, I had a window that looked into the hallway, not at the outside world, but the hallway within the apartment building. Standing right there at my door was a guy dressed head to toe in skin-tight, green, long-distance biking jersey material, you know? Those zip-up jackets cyclists wear and those funny shorts. And, you know, I didn't feel scared. I didn't feel angry. I wake up you're still a little bit groggy, you're still a little bit asleep. You look out, you see this guy standing right in front of my door, and you think, oh, so it wasn't just bullshit. So we're really going to do this. Okay, so they found where I live. They came to my door. And, there was a sense of relief. Like, all this isn't for nothing. It isn't just smoke without fire. Okay, it's really going down. And then, there was that sound. Bing! And the elevator doors opened, and this guy got in and went down and left. That guy was a complete coincidence. The guy wasn't even vegan. He was just wearing the kind of outfit that the vegan followers of Durianrider were wearing. He happened to be in the hallway of my apartment building. So it didn't happen at that time. But I did have about 4 face-to-face confrontations with Durianrider followers who were at varying degrees of expecting to attempt to kick my ass or for me to try to kick their ass in self-defense, that they thought some kind of fist fight was going to eventuate. And each of those stories was very different. One of those guys, he had been named by Durianrider. I had been told by Durianrider, other people had been told, that this guy in particular was going to hunt me down and kick my ass and beat me up. Many of his promises just vaguely alluded to him having gangs of followers. He had so many devotees and followers in Chiang Mai who would find. But this guy had been named in specific. And I was actually in a shopping mall in Chiang Mai, and I walked up on him completely self-confidently. Just walk right up and say, "Oh, hey, I think the first thing I said to him was something like, 'Are you going to pretend you don't know who I am? You're going to pretend you don't see me?' Hey, I know who you are. You know who I am. You gonna make something happen or not?" And that guy, right away, he was just like, "Oh, look, man, I want you to know. Durianrider said that stuff. I'm not gonna try to beat you up. I'm not gonna try to kick your ass." And we had a very memorable conversation. And like so many people who are mentioned or alluded to in this story, within 1 year, that guy's whole life had changed. That guy, he stayed in touch with me. He sent me messages as he became more and more disillusioned with Durianrider. He found out the extent to which that whole movement was based on like a sandcastle made out of lies. And, his life had to take on a new direction, as he lost the sense of hope and motivation that came from this direction, this commitment to this particular part of the vegan movement. So yeah, it was much more his personal tragedy than it was mine. My situation in this alleyway with walking up on 2 guys, one of whom was the notorious Jack Green. Most of Thailand, and certainly the city of Chiang Mai itself, is made up of narrow alleyways. And this was an alleyway in broad daylight in the tropics, so it's a brightly lit alleyway. It's not dark or inherently dangerous, but there just isn't that much space. So I'm walking down this alleyway, and I can see them a long way ahead of me on the side of the road. At least one of them had his bike there. They both have, bicycles and bike helmets. But then one of them, the bike is chained up. One of them has the bike in front of them. And they're standing there having a conversation. That's why they don't see me coming for nearly as long as I see them. So from their perspective, all of a sudden, whoa, here's 6'3", 227-pound Aysel Mazard right on top of us. And look, what's going through your mind at that point? Am I going to be friendly to these guys? Am I going to be nice to these guys? Am I going to walk up on them and say, "Hey, I know who you are. You know who I am. Is this going down or what?" You don't want to instigate something if it's not going to happen anyway. But if it is going to happen, if it's not all smoke without fire, if Durianrider is being sincere in saying he has gangs of his followers trying to hunt me down and kick my ass, these 2 particular guys, they would be exactly the guys to do it, because they were, at that time, 100% devoted Durianrider cult flunkies. And again, this was a crossroads in their lives. So soon thereafter, everything changed. Both of these guys became completely disillusioned with Durianrider, became completely disillusioned with the movement. They took on new directions, not just in their YouTube channels, but in their lives. And both of them stayed in touch with me. Both of them talked to me several times after the event. Again, it turned out to be much more their personal tragedy than it was mine. Anyway, I walk up to these 2 guys. They had just been eating lunch with the followers of Durianrider. They had been going out to dinner with Durianrider and freely and riding their bikes to the top of the mountain and attending the lectures from Durianrider and Freely, some of which were directly denouncing me. They were absolutely in the hothouse of followers who were receiving those Facebook messages and watching those YouTube videos as they came out. There's absolutely no way they could have been unaware of the conflict that was boiling over between myself and Durianrider, which fundamentally was about the fact that I was a rival leader in the vegan movement, that it was a challenge to his authority. And while I was there, there were a whole lot of vegans who reached out to me as a kind of touchstone of authenticity, as someone who both symbolized and actually was an alternative to the style and substance of vegan activism offered by Durianrider and Freely. And all those people, their lives changed so much, that year or within a few months of that event. I met one woman who became the lesbian girlfriend of Henya. Yes, Henya Mania. They've now long since broken up, but I forget, they were together for a year or a year and a half or something. Each of these people was following their own peculiar fate on a winding road leading off, each one in a different direction. But there were people there who were happy to see me. And yeah, there were people there who were aware that there were orders from Durianrider to kick my ass. And these two guys in this alleyway at that time, I knew which one they were. So look, I'm not that big, but I'm bigger than these guys. There's two of them. There's one of me. I'm 6'3", 220 pounds. I'm doing push-ups and lifting weights every day. I am prepared in every way, mentally and physically, for this conflict if it's going to happen. And they don't see me coming, whereas I do see them in the distance. So I come up to them and I basically say, look. And they respond by playing dumb. They very nervously insisted that they had no idea what Durianrider had been saying about me. They hadn't seen any of those videos or gotten any of those Facebook messages. They behaved as if they were hearing it from me for the first time, that Durianrider had sent the word out for guys exactly like them to find me, beat me up, and possibly drag me away to Durianrider's lair, I suppose, to be judged by him, that there is this open order out for me to be beaten down. Now, as I said in the only interview with a journalist I ever gave on this topic, this story would not be so surprising if we were talking about a gang of communists. It would not be so surprising if we were talking about a gang of neo-Nazis. But we're here talking about a bunch of predominantly fruitarian hippies. We're talking about a bunch of vegans who are supposedly going to save the planet, who are preaching compassion, ecology, and all the rest of it. And here I am in an alleyway facing down two guys who have orders from their cult leader to kick my ass. These guys didn't say it. The other guy I alluded to earlier who met me one-on-one in that shopping mall, one of the first things he said to me was, "Whoa, you're a lot bigger than I was expecting." Thanks for your candor. He also asked me when he was sitting there, he asked me how much I could bench press. I remember that was part of the conversation. And in this conversation, the conversation in the alleyway, I didn't bring it up. One of the two guys, he's quite a small, slender guy, he decided to tell me that he was a kung fu enthusiast. He's like, I'm not really into long distance cycling. I was like, oh, really? And he's like, oh, yeah, he's into kung fu. Kung fu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, mixed martial arts, one of those or all of the above, that he was a martial arts guy. Well, you missed your chance to show me rather than tell me, homie. The tragedy of this is, of course, that these people did have good intentions, but they chose bad leaders. Jack Green would go on to become an incredibly notorious figure. He went from one extreme ideology to the next. He became a neo-Nazi by the strictest definition imaginable, making YouTube videos directly quoting and praising Adolf Hitler. A lot of these people, you can trace the tortuous trail of the terrible decisions they made in their life through Chiang Mai, Thailand, and for each and every one of them, it was a major crossroads. Some of those people became devourers of raw meat, became carnivores, became ex-vegans who denounced the vegan movement. Others still just denounced the leadership of Freely and Durianrider, but became vegan leaders in their own right. But it's not just when you're away on holiday. It's not just when you're attending a conference, a party, an event. It's not just in these momentous occasions that are marked in advance on your calendar. And it's not just when you're facing down the possibility of a fist fight in an alleyway, that you're at an important moral crossroads in your life. You get to choose ethically, intellectually, emotionally, who you're going to be and what kind of person you're going to become. The problem with the vegan movement then and the problem with the vegan movement now is not that we have too few vegans. It's that we have too many people who are doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. When you do the right thing for the wrong reasons, it never can last. People chose terrible leaders in the vegan movement because they had terrible motivations. People were pursuing money, fame, power, respect, sex. People were trying to get rich and famous on social media. And in that moment in 2016, that possibility seemed more tantalizingly close than ever before. It seemed as if you could be the next Freely, could be the next Durianrider, could be the next Bonnie Rebecca. And nobody really stopped to think whether or not that would be a good thing for themselves or whether or not that would be a good thing for the future of veganism, for the fate of the movement as a whole. You can see what happened to Izzy Davis. You can see what happened to Bonnie Rebecca. And I guess conversely, you can see what happened to Joey Carbstrong. How many of those people are still just doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do? Only the ones who in the first place did the right thing for the right reasons. The people who didn't just become vegan as part of this endless pursuit of wealth, fame, and glory. Why do we tell stories about monsters? Is it to make us feel scared, or is it to make us feel safe? Because ultimately, none of us know any monsters. None of us see any monsters. And I think it would be reassuring to imagine that these eccentrics I was meeting in this alleyway in Chiang Mai, that the whole gang of them, the various cast and crew surrounding Freely and Durianrider at that time, that they were somehow wildly eccentric, that they were so different from you and I are ourselves. But they're not. They're dreadfully dismal, normal people. And that's what makes it really scary. That's what makes it really haunting, is recognizing that normal people become communists. Normal people become neo-Nazis. Normal people become vegan, yes, but then they go on to disappoint you or even horrify you when they become ex-vegan, become pro-carnivore, become advocates for eating raw meat, raw butter, you name it. What makes the story meaningful ultimately is that these aren't monsters. They're dismally normal.